We spend our lives trying to find ourselves while filling nearly every quiet with someone else's voice. So, what happens when we finally turn down the noise and listen? Welcome to Womenfolk Revival, where we are deeply rooted and wildly intentional. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Mira. And the answer to your question is a lot. I think this is I don't think. This is what no one talks about. And that's when you are finally able to turn down that noise. You don't just hear yourself, but you start hearing everything else. And you suddenly see how distracted people are and how very little people actually listen.
Yeah.
And how often we're having these conversations where no one's hearing the other person talk, and then you start noticing how quickly they respond without not even really understanding what was just said, you know. And honestly, sometimes you start noticing how much unnecessary noise is everywhere. And I don't mean like noise like sound, I mean just the rushing, the reacting, how they talk, and constant opinions from everyone. Like we keep saying, the phones, everybody doing 5 things at once, and someone asking you a question and they barely listen to the answer. And when you start to become quieter yourself, all of that can suddenly become really loud. Like really loud.
Well, I think too, I think people have gotten so uncomfortable with with silence and stillness. Um, I
Yeah.
I'm very lucky in the fact that I've always been a quiet person. I've always been very still, and I'm very comfortable in in that silence and in that stillness. I don't know how people can do it any other way. I just I get physical reactions from all the noise and and from all the chaos. Um, so it's not just a mental thing for me. It's also a physical thing. Um, and I wish that everyone could experience what that's like. I know it's super annoying for people when I'm constantly asking them, just slow down, just be a little more quiet. And but I need that, and I wish that everyone had that physical reaction, because then it would just be easier for them to slow down. They would see that they need to slow down. They need to quiet down.
But physical reaction in what sense? Like what for you, what is that like?
I just I don't know. I get very uneasy. I feel tension in my body. Um it's I don't know. It noise just it hurts my, just like it hurts your ears sometimes if something's too close. General noise hurts my ears, and the same way that it hurts my ears, it just hurts my body. It's like
Yeah,
I don't know.
you physically feel it.
Yeah.
I've noticed noise has become general noise for me as well has become a problem. And I believe that that is a lot to do with my hormones that are changing going through perimenopause. I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday actually, and she's like, I can't do noise. And she said, I've been like that ever since I started perimenopause. And I said, I'm thinking that that's what it is as well. And also with me being triggered, like I said a few episodes ago, my husband can breathe and I will get majorly triggered. Like I just get tense and I'm like, don't do that. And he's like, what,
Yeah.
breathe? Yeah, please just stop breathing for like the next day or two. But I'll be honest, some days are major triggers for me for whatever reason. I'll hear someone not listening, or I'll watch someone that's completely missing something that seems just so obvious to me, and I can feel myself wanting to respond and point it out and wanting to say, hey, listen, that's not what I just said. Like, how did you not hear me? I literally just explained this to you. And that's the part that I now need to work on, and not pretending it doesn't bother me, because it really honestly does. But learning that I don't have to respond to everything that bothers me, is something that I need to work on. Sometimes I can notice it, like, feeling that irritation starting to happen, and I can just let it be there because I know that in that moment it's really not that big of a deal, and I don't have to turn every emotion that I feel into a reaction.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a big part of what slowing down has been teaching me recently, is that I'm noticing more. But I also learned that noticing something doesn't mean that I have to act on it. It's just sometimes the most peaceful thing I can do is just think, okay, I see what's happening here, and we're going to leave it there and let it go.
And I think that especially is difficult for people. We kind of live in a world where we have to have an opinion about everything, and we have to react to everything. And you so don't. And it does
Yeah.
take work to get you out of that. There are habits involved, new habits that you have to create for that to happen. And I can't tell you what the actual verse is, but it's give it to God. And that's what you should do with anything you feel a reaction coming about, or you get angry about something or triggered in some way. Give it to him and move on. And
Yeah.
can it not be that easy?
It's not.
And maybe
I have a really hard time with
maybe
that.
maybe that takes practice too. And I get it.
It does.
I get caught up as well. Some days are easier than others. But when you really start forming that continuous connection, and that conversation, a lot of times I leave the conversation open, because
Yeah.
he knows I'm going to be back in 5 minutes talking to him about something else, hoping
Yeah.
that I do.
As it
because
should
on a
be.
good day I do.
Yeah. I'm feeling like sometimes maybe these things are our creator's way of pulling us back to him, and knowing that, because he knows we need him, right? So I actually had one of these moments just recently, more than one. The one I was not nice to someone. I'm a nice person, but I'm not perfect. And I was pissed. I said, I hope that you're close to God, because you're a terrible person, and hung up. Like, I was so pissed off. And then I was like, okay, in that moment, as soon as I hung up, I'm like, that was so unnecessary. Like, you are so wrong for this. And God's going to get you. But
what
no,
though?
but I said to
but the beautiful thing is that you recognize that.
recognition. That's the first step.
And I would
but
say
I can't
most
just,
people don't realize that, or just don't even care to realize.
I used to not care, but now I care. And now it's like, okay, but how do I get past this? So, not unfortunate, but we have a lot going on in our lives right now. The kids are starting school. We have a huge event coming up in our lives. Really amazing transformation. And so, like, there's a lot of moving parts. So, things and doctors need to be changed around, and then something happened to my daughter. So this was my moment that I had. So I was trying to make an appointment for my daughter because we were in the hospital for an eye injury, and she needed to follow up with the ophthalmologist. So they called, and the problem was the only follow-up appointments that they were only offering was for the morning, and I couldn't come during the morning, because my husband works during the day, and I'm not going to take all these kids with me. So I thought, okay, she needs glasses anyway. So I asked the lady, is there any way we can just not do the follow-up, and just, why don't we schedule her for the optometrist in the afternoon when I can go? And if they see something that still concerns them, then we can always be referred back to the ophthalmologist another day and in the afternoon, and therefore then it won't be a follow-up appointment. It will be an actual appointment because she needs to be seen. And to me, it made sense, and that's how I had explained it. And instead of really hearing what I was asking, the woman kept telling me, well, we need to schedule a follow-up. And I said, yes, I understand. I'm not saying she doesn't need a follow-up. I'm just saying I can't come during the morning. And you're telling me the follow-up appointments are only in the morning, right? So I'm asking if we can schedule with the optometrist instead. And she got real snappy with me and asked when the best time would be to come in. to be seen for the follow-up. And I just remember sitting there thinking, are we seriously having this conversation again? Because this is one of those things that really gets me, when I feel like I've been perfectly clear and someone isn't actually listening to what I'm saying. And I could have kept going. I really could have kept going. Yeah. And I could have gotten more frustrated. And I could have tried to force her to understand, but she already wasn't hearing me. So I just stopped in that moment. That was one of the good moments. And I said to myself, okay, thank you. And I hung up. And honestly, I was irritated. And I didn't magically become this peaceful person who wasn't bothered by it, because I was bothered. But I was thinking about it afterward, like, I was like, how did that entire conversation just happen? But then I caught myself, because this is what I'm learning. I can't control whether someone listens to me. Yeah. I can't control whether they understand what I'm saying, even though to me it is perfectly clear, and I can't control how they're going to respond. But I can decide for myself how long I'm going to let that interaction live in my head, and that part matters to me the most, because I don't want someone else's 5-minute interaction to take up the next 3 hours of my day, and I don't want to be making dinner and still fussing about it to my husband now, and I don't want to be talking to my kids thinking about it. And right. So that's just where I think the real work is for me. And sometimes right now it's just going to be, okay, how did you handle this after it happened, and how can we be better the next time, so that maybe I can better prepare myself to be more gentle with them. Maybe they're having a bad day. Have I ever thought about that? No, yeah. Because I'm too rushed to be doing what I need to be doing in my own world. I'm not thinking, well, maybe they're in the middle of a divorce. Maybe they don't want to be at work. Maybe they're sick. They don't have a choice. They have to be there, right? And so maybe they're being snappy with me is something that's going on with them. And I need to recognize that. And a lot of people, I also feel like, are going to be like, well, why do I have to recognize what's going on with them? Well, if you want peace within yourself, this is where you have to start. Because if you can't go on thinking, well, they're going to have to figure it out. They're not. You need to only control what's in your hands, yes. Right? To get you where you need to be.
And I think that's another struggle that has come along with the breakdown of community, is that we don't have that mindset, how is this person doing, and how is that person doing, and how am I affecting everyone in the community, because there is no community. You go into work, which is away from where you live. You deal with people that you don't know and most likely may never see again or deal again with. So, what does it matter if if you say something mean, or if you say something the wrong way? But we have to, and somewhere along the line there's been a disconnect that every human is a living person and feels and has stuff going on, and we have no idea what is going on in anyone's world. There's so many horrible people in this world doing horrible things to others. You just never know who you're dealing with. And with the lost sense of community, it's hard to keep that mindset all the time. And I think too, I also think that because we are so consumed with modern life and what celebrities are doing and what politicians are doing, and watching your TV show or listening to the album as soon as it comes out, and we don't have time for quiet moments and for really getting to know ourselves. You really get to know yourself when you slow down and you just be in the quiet and the stillness. And maybe that scares you, but it's something that is necessary. We should. If you don't know yourself, how can you know anyone else? And how can you have that true relationship with God when you don't even know who you are, interacting with Him or anybody else?
Yeah, that also opens up a door as well. I think the more you sit and you're able to get to know yourself more, I think sometimes it turns people off because you're like, ew, that's not me. This isn't what I'm wanting. But when you really start to accept the fact that, okay, this is who I am, then the criticism that you receive from other people that you've been putting off for so long actually hits different. It's not, oh, I'm a terrible person because they said this is what I need to change. Like, for example, my husband, he does a lot of critiquing, and he's not perfect either, and I used to throw it back and forth like, well, you do this and you do that. No, shut your mouth, Mira. Listen to what the man is telling you. This is your best friend. And so when I started taking his criticism and him critiquing me, not really critiquing, but his criticism of what he sees in me, because he lives with me every day and he's the outside person, now it's not a matter of okay, this is who I am, because he knows that that's not who I am. He's just pointing out, hey, you've been doing this a lot lately and this isn't who you are. I've noticed it. You hear things differently. And so then you start to reflect. You're able to reflect on how you've been, and, well, maybe I shouldn't. Or even if now I'm to the point where I'm like, I don't think I was that way, but I'm going to do this anyway just to make him see that that's not who I am. But then when I start doing it, I'm like, oh, wait, I was kind of being that way. And what? Am I really this person? No. So it just opens up a whole nother, however you look at it, can of worms or can of flowers. Like, you can look at it bad or you can look at it good, but he's my best friend. He's not trying to fight me. He's just literally telling me, hey, this is what's going on. So it's a lot, and it's not just with people that you don't know. It's people that you that you love, and like us, like as friends, like, we just the last week, we usually talk all the time, but then like in the last week, we've just been so busy because of society and everything that's going on and things in our lives. And it's like, there was times where I didn't respond, where I'm sure you could have been like, well, I'm going to be upset with her, times that you didn't respond to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be so upset with her. But it's like, you are my community. You understand what's going on. I understand what's going on. So I wouldn't even let these thoughts proceed into my head of, well, I'm going to be upset with her and be this sort of way, because we're two best friends. Like, what are we fight? What would we want to fight with each other for? For what? Like, we are both busy. We are both having things going on in our lives. And it's like a mutual agreement. We both understand how things work. And that's what I love so much about our relationship is we can not talk for several days and then try to do something and it not work. But it's just like, we understand that that's life, right? And what are we going to get out of being upset for what? Like, and that's what I love about us and trying to grow this community with other women is there's so many communities I see out there, especially like on Facebook and stuff that I've joined, and people are just going at each other's throats for no reason. Like just these simple things of, well, she shouldn't have asked that question. That was stupid. So this is an environment where people are supposed to feel safe and ask those stupid questions that you're thinking are so dumb, right? Like, no question is stupid. If it's basic and I know the answer, they might not be able to have that thought process of what the answer might be, because maybe they're in such torment or they have so much trauma that they really do need you to answer that simple question.
And isn't that just so strange? I mean, didn't we all,
awful.
For those of us that did go to school, we were around other children that all learned differently and thought differently, and we saw that and we knew that. So why is it now as adults are we so unforgiving
when
somebody just doesn't get something?
It's so gross, Maggie. I hate it.
My husband and I deal with this a lot because he always tells me that I live in a fantasy world, and I get that. I do. I do understand that, but that's not necessarily a choice that I make. I think differently, and I see things differently, and and I can never just hear something. I always need to, break it down and figure out if, is this a simple question, or is there more to it? Is there something that I'm missing? Is this coming from a certain place? Or
you also need to feel the emotion of something. I've noticed that about you.
Yes, I do. And that's amazing. And that's okay. It's okay for us to be. God made us all differently.
For a reason, though, because that's what we need you to bring to our table here at Womenfolk Revival. We need different. Just because your
Yes.
opinion is different from somebody else's, or I don't agree with you on something, I could care less. I can still learn from you in a different sense, in a different way, right? With
Yeah.
maybe you'll teach me how to understand something differently where I would have never thought before that I would have understood something from somebody. And now I get it because you helped me explain that way because of your dumb question that somebody else thought was dumb, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that's the beauty
You
of it
know
all.
how
is-
many times I've heard a dumb question and then it answered something else that
Yeah.
I had been thinking about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. You know,
is.
so I you know, and if somebody gets like that with you, if someone is on you for not, you know, getting it the way that they're giving it to you, that's not your fault. That is their fault.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it don't change you, you know, just I don't know how we happily encourage these people to, you know.
Well, there was one incident on a Facebook group where this woman was just kind of going at, like, attacking this woman who had asked a question. And so instead of putting her on blast like everybody else did, I did send her a message privately saying, I'm on here privately messaging you because I don't want to put you on blast. And I just want to say that maybe this is going on with this person and maybe they asked it in this way. I do understand your side as well, but I feel like we all kind of just need to be more, like, you know, kind to one another, right? And she was like shocked and surprised, and she did end up saying something back to that woman that, like, kind of like, it wasn't exactly an apology, and I wasn't expecting anything from her. I just wanted to say, hey, maybe, you know, this was kind of a bit much, and maybe we should just all love each other as women. Like, we're on the same team here. You know, we're not saying anything to be silly or weird, or just because it makes sense to you and it doesn't make sense to them, they're supposed to get it.
Right.
Like, my husband's done that with me plenty of times before, where he just looks at me because he's like, you're so intelligent. How do you not understand this? Well, because I'm not really that intelligent. I don't know everything, right? I'm not you. I don't know everything you know. And he's like, oh, I guess, you know, you're right. I guess I shouldn't expect you to know everything I know, but
Yeah.
I guess because he thinks we're just one person now. I'm not in your brain, man.
Oh, that's funny.
But when you slow down, you start noticing things, you know, and sometimes
Yes.
you notice things you wish you didn't, and you should start noticing how many people are constantly distracted and how often people aren't really listening and how quickly we react and,
Yeah.
and how often we're really thinking about what we're going to say before the other person has, you know, even finished talking. And I don't want to become someone who's constantly irritated by that. So I'm just would just be creating another kind of chaos and noise for yourself, you know. I'm noticing everyone else's chaos, and then you know, you end up bringing it home with yourself, and that's not what you want. You don't want to become more present to make more judgment, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to slow down to turn into. I don't want slowing down to turn into me walking around thinking everyone else is, you know, doing life wrong, because that's not peace either. And I think that's really an important direction that we need to go in, because there's a difference between noticing something and judging everybody that you notice, and realizing how someone isn't listening and deciding that they're a terrible person because of it. You know, there's a difference between seeing the chaos and letting yourself get pulled into that chaos. And I'm learning that. I'm still learning. It's a process that I can see without taking it on. At least I'm trying, you know. And some days I do really well, and some days I don't.
And I think it's especially harder too for people who are really immersed in societal living and are constantly surrounded by other people, especially, you know, people that they don't know and don't necessarily care about.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure how exactly to navigate that. Other than, I mean, I don't know. I guess I did that throughout life when I was more immersed in it, and you kind of just have to close yourself off in a way, which again was easy for me because I'm extremely introverted, and I've always kind of, you know, I've always been, more of like your lone wolf, rather, even when I was, had groups of friends. I,
Mm-hmm.
just never really felt, I guess, a part of everything. So I think it was easier
Mm-hmm.
for me in that sense too, to kind of step away, and because that's just what really spoke to me. Um,
Yeah.
but I would love to hear, maybe your opinions, or, our listeners that are completely immersed in their life, and how they are able to kind of shut all of that off, and how to be more intentional and thoughtful in the moment of
Chaos.
chaos. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think slowing down means that we're suddenly supposed to like become these perfectly calm women who never get irritated. We are women, right? We are still human and we are still going to have triggers, especially as we go into that amazing perimenopause era.
Yeah.
And we're still going to have moments where somebody gets under our skin. The difference is just, learning to recognize what's happening inside of you and to catch it in that moment and to pause and just give yourself a second before you respond, because that second can change everything. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
realize, what? This doesn't actually need my energy, and you're able to move on. And that's one of the strangest things about becoming quieter is you just become more aware of how loud that it has always been for you. And at
Yeah.
first that's really uncomfortable because you start seeing things and hearing things and realizing how much you've been surrounded by noise without even realizing it. And maybe that's why we fill every quiet moment, just because when everything gets quiet we finally have to notice yourself, like you said before,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening around you. And sometimes that, like I said, that's really uncomfortable, but I also think there's something really beautiful about it because you start noticing and you get a chance, you get a choice.
Yeah.
You can keep reacting to everything you see, or you can become more intentional about what you're allowing to happen in your
Yes.
day.
And as much as that is, it's a hard step. It's a hard pill to
Mm-hmm.
swallow when you finally realize that you are not who you thought
Very
you
hard.
were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also know what good is going to come from that if you just, put in the work and stay mindful and continue to give yourself those times of quiet and still. But you're also going to start realizing other things, maybe how tired you are, maybe
Mm-hmm.
how unhappy you are with something. And that can be a gift too, especially when you really start listening to your body and maybe different ailments that you have. And
More in tune.
yeah, and then
Mm-hmm.
that way, you can get those things fixed, and then it's less that's
Yes.
kind of pulling at you every single day. And you start to notice your own intuition,
Yeah.
um, creativity, and you have more time for prayer and that connection, and just to look at the around in the world, the natural world,
Yeah.
and just complete wonderment, and just complete awe at how beautiful it is, and know that there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
world going on outside of your life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what peace actually looks like. Not never being bothered, getting irritated, pretending everything's fine, but being able to say, this bothered me and
Yeah.
I'm still okay. Maybe that's what happens when we finally turn down the noise.
and
We start
and
hearing,
and maybe one reason why modern life keeps us so relentlessly stimulated
mm-hmm,
is that quiet people start thinking for themselves,
yeah,
and they don't want us thinking for themselves. um, they want us in control, doing what they want us to do. And thinking for yourself and living for yourself is not exactly, it's not the most profitable thing for them.
mm-hmm,
Quiet doesn't sell you very much. It
yeah,
can if you make it work for yourself, but it doesn't for the system.
mm-hmm.
A woman sitting
Well,
underneath a tree thinking for an hour isn't profitable for them. It's profitable for you, and your well-being, your health, and your connection to God. But it's not for them. But oh, what it would do
Yes.
for the individual, and then for humanity as a whole, if we all took that time to be still and quiet and thoughtful and intentional, and to regain our connection with the real world that is not society. The real world is the one that was given to us by our Creator.
Right. But I am just going to throw in there that we still have to continue dealing with society. We just have to learn how to turn off the noise on the right side of the chart.
We also have to figure out how to make society work for the real world, for God's world.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was getting at. So we start hearing things we didn't notice before. We hear ourselves. We notice the people around us. We notice how distracted everybody is. We notice how little people actually listen. And honestly, sometimes that can be really frustrating. But maybe becoming quieter isn't about making everyone else quieter too. Maybe it's about learning what to do with what we notice. Because we're going to see things. We're going to have those moments where we're thinking, how did you not just hear what I said? We're going to get irritated. We're going to want to respond. And sometimes we will. But maybe we can start catching ourselves. Take a breath. Let the moment be what it is. And then come back to our own lives. Because we don't have to fix everything we notice. We don't have to understand everybody. And we don't have to let every little thing we see take up space in our minds. Maybe that's what listening really gives us. Not just the ability to hear ourselves, but the ability to choose what we carry. So if you've been slowing down lately and you've started noticing more, don't be afraid of that. You might notice things that frustrate you. You might notice things that surprise you. You might even notice things about yourself you didn't see before. Just remember, you don't have to respond to everything you notice. Sometimes you can simply see it, take a breath, and let it pass. And maybe that's what we're really learning to do. Not escape the noise, not make the whole world slow down. Just learn how to live our lives without letting all that noise pull us out of them. So next time something gets under your skin, pause before you respond. Take a breath and ask yourself, does this actually need me? Because sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. If this conversation resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and follow to Womenfolk Revival on your favorite app, and come join us over on our Facebook community page. And next week, we're going to go a little deeper into what's happening when we start paying attention to what we've lost along the way. The things our elders knew how to do. The things they knew that we weren't always taught. And why I think it's so important that we start learning those things again, so we can pass them down instead of letting them disappear. The elders knew something we forgot. So until next time,
stay rooted and stay wild.
Stay wild.